This is Talkback 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is News Talk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. KGVO, Missoula's news and weather station.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations. You made it to Friday, April 19th. And it's time for the 1 hour edition of Talkback. Talkback this morning brought to you by Harrington Surgical Supply, where appointments are preferred for mastectomy fittings and custom compressions, but walk-ins always welcome. Also brought to you by Y West Storage out at the Y on Two Smokes Way. If you need a storage unit, you need to call them for pricing and availability right now. That number 406-510-0590, because at Y West, we're making room for you. And by Phillips Janitorial, residential and commercial cleaning done extraordinarily well. No job is too big or too small for them. Here's their number, 406-260-6617.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
Okay, welcome everybody. Good to have you along this morning. That is Nick Christensen right over there. Mr. Nick, hey, what's up? Oh,
good morning.
You lost your microphone there for a second. All right, joining us on the phone right now, as is our custom, is we get the crime report for the week. Matt Jennings is the interim county attorney for Missoula County. And Matt, good morning, sir. What do you have for us today?
Good morning, Peter. This week in Missoula County, we filed 18 felony complaints. Of those 18, 8 were violent crimes against other individuals. 2 were endangerment crimes. Again, usually those are some sort of driving behavior, often involving drugs or alcohol. We had 4 property crimes, 3 drug crimes, and 1 administrative crime, which I think this week was a fugitive complaint from charges out of another state. We also break down our violent offenses because those are our top priority, and we try and track those. 4 of the offenses this week were family violence. That's 50% of the overall cases, and we find that that's kind of the average throughout the year. About 50% of all violent crimes are those committed on other family members. But 3 were non-family violence, and 1 was a sexual assault or an incest case, bringing that total to 8 of family violence. There were 2 cases that I wanted to highlight this week, Peter. One of them is we're looking for a suspect, Damon Petalou, I think is how you say his name, and he is wanted for attempted deliberate homicide. The Sheriff's Department has been seeking the help from the public to locate him and bring him into custody. I have no reason to believe that he's an overall danger to the public. The alleged offense was against his partner. Nonetheless, he is not in custody, and he is being sought by law enforcement. So I encourage your listeners to look online, see his photo, and if they see him, don't engage him, but do please call 911 because law enforcement is looking for him. The other case that I wanted to highlight this week, Peter, is we had a human trafficking case, and this is something that we've put so much focus on over the last few years of making sure that our law enforcement and our prosecutors are trained up to identify some of the coercive behavior involved in sex crimes and human trafficking. And we had an incident over the weekend involving human trafficking and what appears to be some coercive behavior of forcing a woman to engage into some of those acts, and those are things that we really want to put some more focus on. In this instance, we also got some help from hotel and motel workers, and a lot of facilities like that have also been training their employees to watch out for certain warning signs of people that are maybe being abused, or there's coercive actions, or there's some sort of indication of something not great going on, and call that in. And we're getting a lot more of those reports, and it's really helping to make sure that we can protect vulnerable people in our community.
I'm really glad.
Some of the big cases, Peter.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you spotlighted that, because over the last several years, we've had folks from the lifeguard group here in our studio. We've had the Attorney General here in our studio, several attorneys general. The governors, when they come on, they talk about this, and it has become a spotlight focus for law enforcement, not only with its relationship to drugs and the importation of illegal drugs into Montana, but those 2 crimes seem to run together.
They really do, Peter, and that's something that we've all learned, or at least I've learned over the last decade or so, are really the spin-off effects of this type of behavior and how terrible it can be for the victims of sex trafficking, how certain coercion can get them involved in this type of activity, and then how hard it can be to get out under the eyes of somebody that's sort of forcing or nudging you into this type of behavior. And so we really appreciate all the interagency cooperation from a whole bunch of different entities, bringing a spotlight onto this issue and doing what we all can.
It does spiral out of control, and the nice thing to know, there is help for victims of human trafficking, especially even here in Montana.
That's right. There sure are. A lot of folks want to help.
All right. Well, Matt, it's always a pleasure visiting with you. Thank you so much, and you have a great weekend.
You too, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, Matt Jennings, our county attorney. We're going to come right back. We're going to talk about the fire services levy today, ladies and gentlemen. Folks from the Missoula City Fire Department, along with our very own Dennis Bragg, is going to be joining us here in the studio as well. We'll have Talk Back coming right back after this.
Dennis Bragg checking your weekend weather forecast. Return to sunshine Friday across western Montana, although temperatures will remain right around 50 degrees after a cold start. Those clear skies also mean a cold morning again Saturday with lows in the mid-20s and a chance of frost, so protect those outdoor plants. Sunshine warming us into the mid-60s for the first half of the weekend, but clouds increasing again later Saturday, giving us a 20% chance of rain, and cloudy skies on Sunday, possible overnight showers into Monday.
Okay, we are back. This is Talk Back. We're talking about the fire services levy today. Our special guest here in the studio this morning is, of course, our own Dennis Bragg from KISS FM.
Hello.
And a renowned journalist for many, many years around Montana, both in television and in radio. And would you like to introduce our guest, Dennis? Please.
Yes, I would, please. We've got a couple of folks coming in as we talk about the Missoula Fire Department levy, which is coming up for a vote on June 4th. I want to talk about some of the details. We have right here with us Assistant Fire Chief Phil Keating, and also Andy Drobeck, with renowned firefighter and marathon runner, and just an all-around good guy to talk about.
And a stair climber too, right?
And a stair climber, yeah. We should mention congratulations too on the stair climbing team finishing. The dark guys from Burnaby, BC, took us in a couple of categories, but we're still in there and hanging in there with those guys. So yeah, that's fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about this fire service levy then, that's coming up on the vote on June 4th. Which one of you can kind of walk us through where we're at, money wise, and first off, I guess I could give some of those numbers. 34 mills per year, raising about $7 million a year, going on the ballot on June 4th. Andy, what are we kind of looking with generally in terms of what this is going to cover for us?
Yeah, I mean, I think Philip can probably speak a little bit better to the specific numbers, and he's been more involved with that. For us, with the firefighters union, our focus is on getting staffing. So we're looking at 20 firefighters, which would staff an additional engine company, and then we'd build another fire station 6, an additional fire station. So that's kind of our focus with what we've been seeing out there, and kind of the struggles with a growing city, and the fire department kind of not growing along with it, is that we're just in desperate need of another engine company. Philip, do you want to speak a little bit about what else?
Yeah, we should explain too, Philip. People look at this and they don't always understand how these specific levies and funding. We have not had a change in that basic funding structure since 2008, right?
Yeah, in 2008 we received a SAFER grant, which is a federal FEMA grant, which provided funding for 8 firefighters, and that lasted for 5 years. And then the city took on that burden, but we have not had. The Missoula Fire Department has never had a fire department specific levy in the history of the fire department since 1887. So this is a unique opportunity where we can have a fire department specific levy to fund public safety.
And unlike school levies, the way I understand this, we have a school levy that may go for a term. Mm-hmm. This would be in effect a perpetual levy. There would be a funding source going forward, right?
Yes, yeah. This is an ongoing levy to support the fire department. Yes.
Okay. When we look at this, I know one of the questions, Peter, that comes up a lot of times, people will ask and say, well, why can't this just come out of the regular budget?
The general fund.
Yeah, the general fund.
Right.
People say, well, we're already paying property taxes, we're doing things. Let's deal with that right up front. Yeah. Explain a little bit of how that funding structure works and how a levy would plug into that.
So the way we're currently set up is that the fire department fund comes out of the general fund, and this gives us an opportunity to have some of our own line item money will also be funded by the general fund. But with the tax structure in Montana, what we're seeing is all of the major cities are having this same issue. And of the 7 largest cities in Montana, all of them have either had a mill levy in the recent years or are planning on having one. So it's pretty common with all the bigger municipalities in Montana based on the tax structure.
Well, gentlemen, we do have a caller waiting to visit with you, and it's Emmett. Emmett, good morning. You're on with our guests, Philip Keating and Andy Drobeck. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. Well, actually, you already answered my question because that's what I was going to ask. In the newspaper a few weeks ago, someone wrote a letter to the editor saying, well, why doesn't the fire department, just go to the city council and ask for more money? It should come from the general budget of the city council. Please vote no on the fire levy. That's basically what the letter to the editor said a few weeks ago. And it is true. It's kind of like we're so taxed already. We've had so many levies that go through our property taxes. Our property taxes go up and up and up and up, and everyone says the sky is going to fall if we don't get this passed tomorrow. I was sitting on my pile of papers. I've got the Missoula votes. I've got, that, to mail in. The one for the school levies. I've got, that came in the mail yesterday. And that ballot is what I'm trying to say. So if you could answer those questions, why this is so crucial to put this to a mill levy rather than the city council, if you could answer that.
All right,
yes.
Emmett, thanks for the call. Go ahead, please, gentlemen.
Yeah. Thank you, Emmett. I appreciate the call. So basically, the way that works is when we hire or staff an additional engine company, that takes quite a few personnel, and that's just not feasible within the current budget. We've been asking for that budget line item for quite a few years and have been planning different funding mechanisms since 2014. It's just not feasible within the city's budget.
And I'm going to interject something here so Emma and others understand. Part of your money, this isn't like replacing what you already get out of your general fund budget. That exists.
Yes.
This is like that add-on to be able to cover the additional costs, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, so this will give us the ability to move some of those general fund dollars that are covering fire department expenses and the additional cost of the personnel and equipment. So just an example is Type 1 engine, which all of our stations operate out of, has gone up 30% a year. And so prior to COVID, we were able to purchase a Type 1 engine for roughly $600,000. And since COVID, we're looking well over $1 million and a wait period of 40 months to receive that engine.
That's just for that apparatus?
Just for that one piece of equipment, yes.
Yeah, I guess what many people are asking, and I think Emmett voices an opinion that is held by many, is, what has the city been doing? All these years when you guys, since 2008, haven't really had a significant increase in your funding. I'm sure you've asked, but have they just said, I'm sorry, guys, we're stuck at this point? How does that work?
So we go through the same budget process as every other city department, and we've tried different funding mechanisms. We continue to ask. Unfortunately, the money's just not there. All of us are taxpayers, and we understand the increase, and that's why we chose to remove it from the November election, recognizing that there was a big tax increase coming on property taxes. But the time is now for us to make a decision, and so that's why we've gone to the voters.
Now there is a firefighters union, right? I know the police are part of a union, and they negotiate for their department. Do you folks negotiate for your department as well? Obviously, you do.
Yeah, I can speak to that, being the union president.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, and we go through a negotiation process. We have a contract with the city for wages, benefits, fringe benefits, all that stuff, which we just wrapped up. As far as what the union can do with getting the city to put more emphasis on the fire department and our needs, we do need to do a better job of that in the future. And I think that the union's going to be involved more with being, at these city council committee meetings, being at city council meetings, because what we don't want to do is have this levy pass and then have years go by and then have to do another levy. So we want to put some focus on better planning for that. I will say one thing, and we understand there's been a lot of discussion. We don't like putting this tax upon the citizens, because we understand everybody is very tax sensitive. But if people, are saying we support the fire department, we support their needs, but we're going to protest vote this because of the tax, all that's going to happen with that is we're not going to be able to get what we need and respond the way that we need to respond. It's going to hurt our citizens because the city's not just then going to go look under their mattress and find $7 million. So I think it's important if people are considering doing that they understand that they're putting, our ability to respond the way that we Missoulians expect in jeopardy by doing that.
Okay, with that, we're up against a commercial break. 721-1290 is our number. 1-800-568-5309. Joining us here in the studio, along with Dennis Bragg, is Philip Keating, an assistant fire chief, and Andy Drobeck, head of the Firefighters Union here in Missoula. We'd love to have your calls and your questions because that's how we get answers here. So give us a call. We'll be right back after this.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work. Sorry, I'm late. Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And we are back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, and we're having a special presentation today with the folks from the Missoula City Fire Department joining us here in the studio, Assistant Fire Chief Phil Keating and Andy Drobeck, who is head of the Firefighters Union. And the phone lines are filling up, gentlemen, so let's go to Ed first. Ed, good morning. You are on Talkback with our guests. What's your question, please?
Okay, several points here. One, I think Dennis said that the school levy was going to be temporary, and I sealed my ballot. I can't look at it, but I'm pretty sure it says permanent for those four issues. That's a permanent sort of increase in the levy. I mentioned yesterday when I called in that this is a really pretty flyer, really good, effective, high gloss, good color flyer that the fire department, it was paid for by the city fire department, they sent out. And I'm reading both sides, and I don't find one word about the cost. Okay? The flyer we got from the school district it tells you how many dollars per 1,000 of assessed property tax value, so we can kind of figure things out. But there's nothing here in this flyer that talks about the cost. And one other question I have here is that it says under consequences, no funding for mental health crisis response. Okay, they pulled that out, the mental health crisis response, but it also says they're going to start funding for the mobile support team. So you got a mobile support team, you got a mental health crisis response that's being dropped out of the proposal, but what's the difference between that and this mobile support team? Okay, thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks for the call. Gentlemen, go ahead, please.
Thank you for the call, Ed. So there may be some confusion there. The mobile support team is the mental health crisis response that you see on there. And if the levy wasn't passed, that's what you would see be eliminated. And we have 3 different mailers coming, and on the third mailer, the cost will be on there. And that could have been an oversight on our part, not providing that on every one. But if you're on the back of that, you'll see the engage page for the Missoula levy, and you can go on there and get that information as well.
One thing, too, he mentioned about school levies. I was referring to the general idea and the concept of school levies. There is a difference, and he was right pointing that out on the way schools are approaching this. Usually it's been like a 2-year term or a 4-year levy or a 6-year bond or something like that. And even school districts are kind of changing that approach. One thing I want to clarify, too, Peter, because I had this question coming in. You did a story. We had the ballot drop this week. That is for the school levy. The ballots for the fire department issue are still
That's going to be part of the. That's going to be part of the primary election ballot.
Yeah,
which is coming 4th. Up in May.
Right. Mm-hmm. So those ballots haven't dropped yet. Yeah.
All right. So let's get Brad on the line. Brad, good morning. You're on Talkback, sir. What's on your mind?
Good morning, Peter. I just did some exhaustive research on some work that was done by the Frontier Institute concerning the budgets in Missoula City and County, and the combined budgets between the city and county above what they should be for population growth and inflation in 2023, so not this upcoming year, is $141 million. The city budget is $97 million higher than it should be based upon population growth and inflation since 2007. So we have a budget that has been created by those who are more progressive than I am and spend more freely than I do, because if I see a deficit in my income, I have to adjust my budget. So I certainly empathize and sympathize with the fire department. I don't think they are behind the problem at all. They're not the ones that are controlling the funding. The city government has created this bloated, wasteful expenditure of money for city residents. And so consequently, they are $97 million higher. And those are their own numbers. Those are not numbers created by the Frontier Institute. Those were taken by the Frontier Institute from the city of Missoula and created that spreadsheet or that graph. And they did it for major cities across the state. And we are the worst city of the bunch. So my thought is this. We need to have essential services funded, police, fire, protection. We need to make sure that schools are taken care of. But when you see $97 million more being expended by the city currently than what they should be spending, they should be spending, if I remember my numbers correctly, it was $177 million. They're spending $268 million. So consequently, there is money in the budget for providing funding for fire and police. The city council, the mayor need to find that money in the budget and not put it on the backs of the taxpayers who have already seen 25 to 60% increases in their property taxes and are dealing with inflation. So I think it's really critical. And again, I'm not in any way disparaging the efforts of the city firefighters. I just think it's very critical that the city government take a look at where they're expending money and allocate it where it is constitutionally most likely to be spent, and that's police and fire protection and education. So I would like to hear the comments from those who are supporting it, the members of the fire staff who are asking us to come up with this money on top of all the other increases that we see.
Okay, with that, we're going to do that right after we come back from the break. But go ahead, Dennis.
I was just going to say, we'll ask Andy specifically about that because that's been kind of interesting. I mean, historically, your fire departments and police, there were certain things that were part of, actual funding that cities took care of. Now there's all this other stuff. So Andy will be a good one to answer that question in a couple of minutes here.
We're going to go right back. We're getting a fire call right now. Stay with us. Back with more right after this. Did you see the...
Chris Jackamick. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jackamick, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
We are back. This is Talk Back, and for this hour, we're talking with folks in the Missoula City Fire Department, Assistant Fire Chief Phil Keating and Andy Drobeck with the Firefighters Union also joining us here this morning. And the phone lines are filling up fast, so let's try to get some more. Is there anything else you want to say about the last call before we go? Please.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. First, I think just a little bit of what Philip said earlier, which is this is a problem that's occurring other places. So it's not a Missoula unique problem, which shows that there is a little bit of a bigger, wider problem here. The other thing is that, it is a question we've been hearing and it's a good question and we want to address those questions. But if I could just prophesize with a pen a little bit, what I can tell you is that if this levy fails, there is no indication, and we've been told that the funding is not is not going to occur for us to be able to hire those 20 people, build a new fire station, and run another engine company. So as upset as people are with taxes and as stressed as they are with taxes, if they recognize the need, which they should, and we are, they've said that, then they need to vote yes on this, or we're not going to have the ability to do those things.
Well, don't you also have the impact then on insurance rates? I know in my case, we live in that Lolo, because of the Lolo Peak fire.
The ISO rating, right?
Yeah, the ISO ratings have really been jumping. And if services lack, I know I've seen this in other communities where then you have that shortfall and you start paying for it in your insurance bills as well. So.
All right, let's get another caller on the line. This is Jeff. Jeff, good morning. You're on with our guests. What's your question, please?
Hey, good morning. I want to follow up with this 2 points. First of all, when we were raising a family, we prioritized 4 things, and that was food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. Those were our priorities, and everything else, like vacations, were luxuries. I took care of our needs before our wants. The city of Missoula does not do that. I went and did a crunch of the budget, and I was surprised to hear an earlier caller talk about over $200 million, because the number I came up with was $166 million on the Missoula City website. So that's what I'm going to go with right now. Out of that, there's approximately between 2 line items, which is fire department and fire all hazards, which I'm not sure what that actually is. But between those two, it's $21.8 million levied to the fire department, which is only 13% of the budget. So to say that the city can't find another $7 million and $166 million worth of budget, to me seems disingenuous. Which leads into the second part of this, is that the levy asked for a $7 million increase. But if you take that $21.8 million currently allotted to the fire department and divide it by 6 stations, that's only $3.6 million per station, which is roughly half of what the levy is. So the levy asks for twice as much money as it costs to run and maintain a station. And this is permanently. This isn't a temporary tax to build a station. This is a tax that will go on forever. So why? That's the second part of the first part of the question is, it's more of a statement. The city council has been derelict in their duty to properly fund the fire department, and now they're asking the citizens to bear the brunt of their dereliction by taxing them more, by paying more in taxes. And second of all, they're asking for twice as much as it costs to fund or to run a station by the figures on the city's own budget. So how can you reconcile those two things, asking taxpayers to bail out the poor city government and by paying twice as much as it costs to maintain a station?
Okay, Jeff, let's let him answer that question. Thanks. Gentlemen, your response, please.
Thank you, Jeff. So the $7 million also is for an additional Station 6, which is not built. We need to purchase the land. We need to build the station. We also need to put the apparatus in the station and the staffing.
And the people, right?
Yeah. So as well as the staffing and funding for the mobile support team, as we discussed earlier.
We might want to explain about the stations. I mean, the last new station we had, Station 5 out in Miller Creek, which is now surrounded by houses. And what happens if let's say you get a response, especially in the area of, West Broadway, you're out in the Setupquin area, those kinds of locations on the west side. What's the response and where does everybody come from and what kind of problems does that present?
Or do you have to mix and match?
Yeah, so we work very well with our cooperators, Missoula Rural and East Missoula, on those boundary areas. So if there was a structure fire west of Reserve Street, Engine 4 from Latimer would respond as the first due. 111 would be second due. 121 from Mount Avenue would be third due. And then the fourth due ladder truck would come all the way from 39th and Russell. And so those response times are impacting ISO ratings. They impact us meeting all the NFPA standards, and with that growth and development, the need for an additional station is.
Are there aside from the increase in our taxes and the increase in the ISO rating, are there any penalties that are imposed on communities who simply either can't or won't improve their fire safety?
Not fiscal penalties. Okay. The most easily identified consequence would be the insurance services office that does those evaluations. They basically come in and score a fire department. We're currently at an ISO of a 3. And with this, we have hopes that we can improve that score. And so there's standards that we try and meet, national standards, that we're currently not meeting on response times and our first units on scene.
Okay, we're going to come right back, and we still have Brian and Jim and Roy and Tim who all want to visit with you, gentlemen. We'll try to get them all in between now and 10 o'clock this morning. And thank you for your responses, and thank you to our folks who with City Fire joining us here to answer your questions. And that's what it's all about. We'll be right back.
Hey, boo, have a honey. I was running until I wasn't. My hospital stay would have cost nearly $48,000, even with insurance. But with VA, I'll pay $0. And VA is the best, most affordable healthcare in America for veterans like me. Knowing that my family is waiting at home and a surprise medical bill isn't, that's good for my heart. My service was then, my benefits are now. Get what you earned. Visit choose.va.gov.
Not all veterans are eligible for the type or amount of benefits mentioned here.
Hey, welcome back to Talk Back. We're talking about the Missoula City Fire Department and the ask for the levy, which is coming up in May. That's when that ballot goes out. We're talking with Assistant Fire Chief Phil Keating, and we have Andy Drobeck also here in the studio along with Dennis Bragg. And let's get right back to the phones and say good morning to Brian. Brian, good morning. You are on Talk Back. What's your question, please?
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. First off, I'd just like to say it's really sad that our city can't fund our most basic services. That's just pathetic. But my question is, I've got the flyer and I've heard all the radio ads, and I know it's illegal, but do you think it's ethical to use tax dollars to try and sway people's votes?
All right. Thanks for the call. Are we using tax dollars to sway people's votes? I guess that's the question.
No. So we basically have two different types of campaigns. We have the educational campaign from the city, and then we have the advocacy campaign that is being run by the union. And so we're very careful not to cross that line. We've sent everything through the city attorney's office to make sure that we're staying on the educational side, and we're trying to provide the data, and we can use taxpayer funds to afford to cover that, and that is all coming out of the fire department budget because we're in a situation where we have to make some of these decisions.
Well, you're fighting for your lives is what you're doing.
Yes.
You know. So, all right, let's get another call in. This is Jim. Jim, good morning. You're on with our guests. What's your question, please?
Just a comment on the Missoula Fire Department. I had a fire over 10 years ago. I had a hell of a time getting through to 911. When I got through, they finally said, "Are you in the house?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Get out now. Help's on the way." First truck, when I hung up the phone, the first truck was there in 4 minutes. And so I have nothing but high praise for the Missoula Fire Department, and I'm going to vote for the levy. Thank you.
Jim, thanks for the call. Gentlemen, that must be heartening for you.
Yeah, Jim, I appreciate the call. And, our biggest focus is, response times and getting to the emergency quickly. We drive, lights and sirens across town to save seconds because it does matter in emergency. It matters during a structure fire to save lives and property. And during medical emergencies, it really matters, especially if it's a cardiac arrest type call. And I think that's where the focus needs to be is, we understand everybody's frustration with taxes, but we are dealing with this is people's lives on the line if we don't have the resources that we need to respond in that timely manner, as he mentioned. And so I think, when you go to fill out your ballots, it's a decision that everybody's going to have to make. But I think people just need to understand, that this isn't a new, something minimal. It's extremely important for us to be able to do our jobs as firefighters.
You got it. Oh, go ahead.
And Andy, could you explain too? Because I know we've had some instances in the last year or two where we've had every engine, every piece of apparatus, in these major things. We had the gas leak recently. Speak a little bit about that. What kind of challenges does that present?
Yeah, so it's hard to get in the life of a firefighter if you're not, in the business. But a couple things. One is we respond to every medical emergency. So anytime somebody calls 911, if it's not strictly a police matter, we're going to that, and we're an important piece of that. And then we also respond to rescues. Fires is just a small piece of that. And calls come in waves. They can be spaced out, but they can come in a lot of flurries. And so you'll get all these calls, bam, 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 at once. And when your resources are tapped, you're scrambling on how do you respond to these emergencies effectively. And by right now, sometimes we can rely on other agencies to help us. But at the end of the day, having a sixth engine company is a huge, huge piece of that. And Missoula has not had another engine company added since 2008. And I think people just need to look around and be like, where was Missoula in 2008? Like, we can't, if we vote this down, how are we going to continue to grow the fire department with Missoula continue to expand? And it's not as easy as just going and saying, hey, city council, do it. There's more to it than that. And that's why we're bringing this levy on the ballot.
Okay, let's move on. Let's get Roy on the line. Roy, good morning. You're on with our guests. What's your question, please?
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. I heard one of the guys there talking about the cost of a new fire engine was $600,000, and then it's gone up to $1 million. I think I have a solution to the problem to kind of cut your expenses. I've been working in I don't work in structure fire, but I've been working in wildland fire as a firefighter and working with crews and for years and years. In the last 5 years, I've been working with Wildfire Resources, and we all the engines, we got small engines, pickup truck with pumpers on the back, skidgens with rubber tire skidders with pumpers, heavy equipment to haul the heavy equipment, and then we have some fallers that fall danger trees on fires. All the equipment we buy, all the equipment they buy is used, and then they fix it up and maintain it real well, and it has to be in very, very good shape to go out in these fires, because all this work's contracted to the Forest Service. The Forest Service doesn't have a department that handles these things. And what I'm getting at is that is it possible you could buy a good used fire engine for even under $600,000 and fix it up and get all fixed up where it's usable?
I want to be very, very conscious of our time. We're running real short. So you want to answer that question, gentlemen, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So different than wildland engine or wildland equipment in general, we're operating 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, under all conditions. And unfortunately, that's the cost of them. I would caution us or any department to look at used equipment, mostly because when people are getting rid of that equipment, there's a reason. It's met its life. And in order to keep that equipment on the streets and responding and providing the service for the citizens, we need that equipment to operate.
And your firefighters, not grease monkeys.
Yes.
I hate to say that. But
what's the average age on an engine now? Operating
by 10 years, they've run their course. They've run their course, and we put a lot of hard miles on them. We start them up when they're cold. We run them as hard as we can across town, get back, shut them down. And we do hang on to some of our reserve apparatus to keep them in the fleet as long as we can, so we have backups, because we do have breakdowns. That's just the fact of the job.
We're going to come right back. We have Tim, Sue, and Kathy in the last 8 minutes. We'll get as many calls in as we can. Gentlemen, thank you for taking all these calls and answering these questions. It's really vital that you're here. We appreciate it. We're coming right back in 1 minute.
When scientists
get right back to the phones, and our guests, of course, are Philip Keating and Andrew Drobeck from the Missoula City Fire Department, answering questions about the levy and all things pertaining thereof. Tim, good morning. Go ahead, please.
Great, thanks. A couple of questions. Why hasn't the impact fees on building permits helped fund the fire department? And with the cost of building permits now, why isn't the building department self-funded? The next question is you guys, I was on board with everything for the fire department, but when 55% of that fund is going towards the mental health people, I got to vote no for it because we've already voted that down, and the city's spending money. Nobody's guarding the chicken coop. I mean, money's just flying out of here left and right. And the next question is, you keep saying we're going to build a fire department, a new station. That's going to cost between $15 and $20 million if we know anything about construction today. So that'll be another bond issue on the ballot again next year. So where does the money stop bleeding?
All right,
when does it stop bleeding?
Let's let him answer that. Go ahead, Phil.
Thank you for the call. So we will not be going to the voters next year for a bond to cover the purchase or the build of a Station 6. We've built that into our budget with this 34 mills ask. And then I can't remember.
He was talking about the 55% of it going to the mental health mobile support team.
Yeah, that's not exactly accurate. So that program's roughly a $1.4 million annual program, and that program's always been under the fire department. It's a division of the fire department. The services they provide for the community and the citizens are essential. They service housed, unhoused. They respond everywhere in the valley, and 1 in 5 Americans have a mental health issue, and Montana is number 3 for suicides. So this is a problem.
Let's get Sue on. Sue, thank you so much for holding. You're on Talkback. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wondered when the other day I drove by the Montana Club restaurant and there was a fire truck and whatever, and I just wondered, why is it that, like, if somebody has a heart attack or something, they can't just bring an ambulance? Why do they have to have the fire truck there?
All right, good question. Please go ahead.
I appreciate the question. It allows us to educate people a little bit. So we respond to EMS calls for a few different reasons. One is that all our engines have paramedics, and generally we can respond there quicker because we're spaced out across the city, so we can get those life-saving trained people there faster. The other thing is that a lot of these emergencies, especially more complex ones, require more than just 2 individuals. They require a team of people, including especially cardiac arrests. We send 2 engines to, and what we've seen is that when we used to send 1, survival rates were really low, and by sending 2, we've dramatically increased survival rates. So having an engine there to respond to medical emergencies is a really important piece of the whole response model.
Plus, you're queued up to go to another call, right? I mean, if you're on the scene of something and a second call comes in, you got to run backup. Then you're already geared up and can depart that scene if that situation's stabilized.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, let's get Kathy's our final caller. Kathy, good morning. Quickly, what's your question?
Good morning, and thank you for taking my call. I'm just kind of concerned about the percentage of calls that are going to the Poverello Center and to the homeless camps and to the fires that they cause that then are preventing our fire people that we are supporting with our tax dollars from coming to our concerns and our crises. It just seems to me like we're spending an awful lot of our tax dollars providing care for people that are passed out on the side of the sidewalk. They're on Broadway and the different areas around there. So what percentage of calls do you folks do that are related to homeless or houseless persons as opposed to taxpayers?
Kathy, thank you. Quickly, gentlemen, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've pulled those numbers, and the response numbers to the shelters is less than 10% of our total call volume. And the way we operate is we don't discriminate on anybody. and we're going to respond. If somebody calls 911, we're going to respond and do our best to provide the best service.
We have 3 minutes left. So, Dennis, why don't you take us through?
One thing I did find, Peter, I looked up the numbers. We had that earlier question asking about the actual cost. So the number is $46 per year, or per $100,000 assessed value. So that's your rate, $46 per $100,000. The median assessed home value in Missoula County, according to the city's numbers, $413,000. That means $189 per year, $1,580 a month. So that's kind of the numbers we're working with. And I think you guys said you'll send more out on future flyers on that. I want to touch on one thing, Peter, that we have not really brought up, and that is the people side of this. Andy, what's it like? I mean, we went through a period there where a lot of our recruitment, it was difficult after COVID. That's picked up a little bit, but you were talking about when you're trying to find additional firefighters and recruitment, cost of living and those kind of things. Where's the competitive part of that?
We have 2 minutes. Go.
Yeah. Part of having a vibrant fire department, which makes for a vibrant community, is the workforce. We want people that are passionate about their jobs, feel like they're part of the community. We don't want turnover. And so, as housing costs have gone up in Missoula, wages haven't kept up with that. And it's made for recruitment to be more difficult. In addition, firefighting it's still a great job, but it's become less desirable, especially in other places that have faced challenges that we're going to face if we don't pass this levy. Burnout, fatigue, and just
double shifts.
You want to feel value in your job. What I can tell you is that at the end of the day, when I go home and I'm happy and I like my job, it's because I felt like I helped the community and there was value in what I'm doing. And when you're not able to do the job that you want to do because you don't have the resources available, you can't get to the call as quick as you want to get to, you can't get the backup crew there as quick as you want to get to. It really is, you suffer from that. And so this levy is really important to making sure that our firefighters, can do the life-saving work that they want to do and they need to do. And we really need the community to support us on that and vote yes.
Where can people find out more information here as they're trying to make up their minds on this issue?
They can go to MissoulaFirefighters.org. That's the union's website, and they can get information. They can go to EngageMissoula.com and get information there. And then, they can always, especially for some of these more tax-related things, they need to reach out to their city council people for that kind of stuff, because the fire department and the union, we're trying to focus on what we need, and there's bigger stuff to it that we just don't have control.
Gentlemen, we are completely out of time. Thank you. Thank you for your answers. And thank you to all of our callers. Dennis, thank you for being here.
I wouldn't miss it.
Helping to facilitate this conversation. So what we need to do now is look forward to Monday, and kind of a big day around here. So what's going on, Nick?
Our friend Rob Nadelson's going to actually be in Missoula, Montana. So he's going to be in studio from 8 to 10, the entire show, all 2 hours on Monday.
All right, so all you Rob Nadelson fans, you can overdose on Professor Nadelson. He's going to be with us Monday for 2 hours from 8 to 10. And again, on behalf of all of us, thank you for, first of all, the work you do and the lives you save. We appreciate it. And thank you for presenting your case. Appreciate it. And Dennis, thank you for being here. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you Monday morning at 6 with Ace on Montana Morning.